What if the worst night of your life was not the end? What if it was only the opening scene? Stay with me, because by the time this is over, you may start questioning everything you think you know about losing everything. Welcome back to Father's Quiet Revenge. Get comfortable. The people in these stories had every chance to do the decent thing. They chose otherwise. My name is Arthur Bennett. 14 months ago, I was worth 3.7 million pounds. I know what that sounds like. It sounds like comfort, security, a man with choices. Then, in 72 hours, all of it disappeared. My civil engineering firm collapsed under a government infrastructure dispute I never saw coming. My business accounts were frozen before I could even get a proper answer from anyone. The house in Cheltenham that I had spent 21 years paying for was taken by a lender who spoke to me as if I were a clerical error. 72 hours. I have waited longer than that for a bathroom renovation. I was 62 years old. My back hurt when it rained. I needed reading glasses to read the labels on tins. And suddenly I was starting over with one suitcase, a worn coat, and a bank card that declined even for petrol. But the money was not the part that broke something in me. It was my son. His name is Elliot. When he was little, I called him Eli. He stopped allowing that somewhere around 25. He was 35 then, living in a polished brick house in Guildford with his wife Naomi and their 2 children. I had helped with the deposit on that house. I am not saying that to make myself sound generous. I am saying it because facts matter. When the house in Cheltenham was gone, I drove to Guildford. 2.5 hours with everything I owned packed into the back of a 2018 Volvo Estate. I knocked on Elliot's door just after 7 in the evening. I was not asking for money. I was not asking for rescue. I needed a sofa. Maybe a week. Just enough time to breathe without the whole world pressing its boot against my ribs. Elliot opened the door and looked at me the way people look at rain on a wedding day. Not angry, just inconvenienced. "Dad," he said, stepping outside and pulling the door partly closed behind him. "What are you doing here?" "My house is gone, Elliot." He glanced over his shoulder. "I know. I heard. I'm sorry. I am. But this really isn't a good time." That sentence did something to me. This was the boy whose first car I bought. The boy whose university rent I paid when he said he wanted independence but still needed help. The boy who once stood at my company's 20-year anniversary dinner and told everyone his father built things that lasted. "Elliot," I said very carefully. "It's Tuesday." He swallowed. "Naomi she isn't comfortable with this right now. I'm your father." The silence after that was louder than the call from my solicitor. Louder than the bank manager telling me there was nothing he could do. Louder than the echo in the empty rooms of my old house. Elliot looked down at the front step. "I'm sorry, Dad." Then he closed the door. I stood there for a few seconds. Not because I expected him to open it again, because some humiliations take the body longer to accept than the mind. I walked back to my car. I sat behind the wheel. I looked at the dashboard for a long time. Then I laughed. Not because anything was funny. I laughed because the universe had clearly developed a taste for timing. That night, I slept in my Volvo outside a house I had helped my son buy, in a neighborhood he would not have reached without me. The seats, for the record, were not designed for a ruined man. Whoever shaped that headrest had never lost a home, a business, and a son's respect in the same week. I woke the next morning to someone knocking on the driver's window. My first thought was police. My second thought was that getting moved along from my son's street would complete the set. But the man standing outside my car did not look like police. He was in his late 60s, wearing a charcoal overcoat and black gloves. His shoes were polished so sharply they looked almost accusatory. He had the posture of a man who had never needed to raise his voice. He knocked again. 3 precise taps. I lowered the window. "Mr. Bennett," he said. I blinked. "Yes?" "My name is Harris. I am personal secretary to Sir Malcolm Whitford. He paused, as if the name should mean something. It did not. Sir Malcolm Whitford has requested the pleasure of your company at his estate this morning. I stared at him. I'm sorry. Who? Sir Malcolm Whitford, sir. And who is Sir Malcolm Whitford? For the first time, Harris seemed mildly unsettled. He is a man of considerable influence. That narrows it down. He is also dying. That narrowed it more. Harris continued as if discussing the weather. His physicians give him perhaps 3 weeks. He is finalizing his will and estate arrangements. He has asked very specifically to speak with you before the documents are signed. The morning was cold. A dog barked somewhere behind a garden wall. A delivery van rolled past like the world was still normal. Harris, I said, I slept in this car last night. I have no house, no business, almost no money, and my son has just refused me a place to stay. I don't know Sir Malcolm Whitford. I don't know why a dying rich man would want to see me. And I look like I lost an argument with a wardrobe. Harris reached inside his coat and produced a small cream card. Sir Malcolm asked me to read this if you hesitated. He unfolded it. Tell Arthur Bennett that what has happened to him does not disqualify him. It is precisely why I need to see him. I took the card from him, read it once, then again. He knows what happened to me? Harris slid the card back into his coat pocket. Sir Malcolm knows quite a great deal about you, sir. That was the first moment I felt it. Not fear. Something older. Instinct. I followed Harris's black Bentley out of Guildford and down quiet roads into the Surrey countryside. My Volvo looked embarrassed behind it. After nearly an hour, we turned through iron gates and followed a private drive lined with beech trees so old they seemed to have stopped caring about human affairs. At the end of the drive stood a house of pale stone and tall windows. Not a mansion in the vulgar sense. Nothing shouted. Nothing begged to be admired. That was the most intimidating part. Money that does not need applause is always the most dangerous kind. At the front entrance, Harris turned to me. One final thing, Mr. Bennett. Sir Malcolm will tell you something difficult to believe. He asks only that you hear him out fully before responding. What is he going to tell me? Harris opened the door. That is for Sir Malcolm to say. I stepped inside, and nothing in my life was ever the same again. The inside of Whitford House smelled of old books, beeswax, and cut flowers from a room I could not see. There were no gold staircases, no marble lions, no portraits of men pointing at battlefields. Just dark wood, quiet carpets, and enough books to make a library feel underdressed. Harris led me down a long corridor to a pair of double doors. He knocked twice. Then he looked at me. He tires easily. If he closes his eyes, do not assume he has stopped listening. Good to know. And please do not touch the writing desk. Why? He opened the door before answering. Sir Malcolm Whitford was not what I expected. I had imagined something dramatic. A dying billionaire framed by heavy curtains, surrounded by machines, issuing final declarations into the middle distance. Instead, I found a thin old man in a navy cardigan seated near the window with a wool blanket over his knees. His hair was white and combed back neatly. His face was pale in the particular way that says the illness has moved from visitor to tenant, but his eyes were alive. Sharp. Too sharp. He studied me for a long moment. Then he said, "You look dreadful, Arthur." I looked down at my creased shirt. "Good morning to you, too." His mouth moved slightly, almost a smile. "Sit." I sat opposite him. There were 2 cups of coffee on a small table between us. "I had Harris prepare it before he left for you," Sir Malcolm said. "I assumed you would need it." "You assumed correctly." I picked up the cup. It was hot. When a dying stranger offers you perfectly timed coffee after you have spent the night in a car, you do not ask too many questions. You drink it. Sir Malcolm watched me. Then he reached beside his chair and lifted a leather folder. I owe you an explanation. You owe me several, I said, starting with how you know my name. I know more than your name. He held the folder out. I know your life. I opened it, and for a moment I stopped breathing. Inside was not a report. It was me. Photographs, records, clippings, copies of documents I had forgotten existed. There was a photograph of me at the opening of Bennett's Civil Works in 2004, standing beside a yellow digger, younger and arrogant enough to believe effort always won in the end. There was Elliot's university accommodation agreement with my signature as guarantor. There was a photograph of my old house in Cheltenham. The front hedge needed trimming. The brass number was slightly crooked. The lavender my wife Helen had planted still bordered the path. My hands tightened around the folder. How do you have all this? I have been watching you, Sir Malcolm said. He said it as if it were normal. I placed the folder on my lap. You need to choose your next sentence very carefully. 40 years, he said. I have been watching you for 40 years. I stared at him. 40. I did the maths. I was 22. Yes. I was a site laborer in Bristol. I know. Why would you be watching me? That is where I first saw you. His gaze moved to the window. It was January. I was 39. I had just completed the acquisition that made me truly wealthy. I was driving back from a dinner near Bath. Too fast. Too pleased with myself. Too much whiskey, if I am being honest. He paused. My car left the road near Box Hill. It went into a ditch. It was snowing. I had a head wound. I could not find my phone. There was no traffic. Something moved at the edge of memory. A dark road. Snow. A car at an angle. A man bleeding into his collar. Then a van stopped, Sir Malcolm said. You got out. You did not know who I was. You dragged me from the car, put me in your van, and drove me to hospital. You waited until a doctor came. Then you left before anyone got your name. The room became very still. I remembered the orange plastic chairs in the waiting room. I remembered being late for work. I remembered my supervisor docking half a day's pay. That was you, I said. That was me. I never thought about it again. For you, Sir Malcolm said quietly, it was an inconvenience. For me, it was the night I decided my life could not continue being only about accumulation. Now I know what you are thinking. Rich man saved by poor young laborer. Rich man finds him decades later, leaves him everything. Tears, redemption, curtain. No, we were not even close to the truth yet. So you watched me out of gratitude, I said. At first. At first? His fingers tightened slightly over the blanket. My business did not simply fail, did it? I asked. Sir Malcolm did not answer immediately. That was the answer. No, he said at last. It did not. I placed the coffee cup down. What happened to me? There are 12 men, he said, including myself, though I have not been active for some time. Men of influence. Finance, media, government contracts, property, private capital. For nearly 30 years, we have operated what we called a selection process. A selection process. Yes. I felt cold spread slowly through my body. Every few years, he continued, a candidate was identified, someone believed to have unusual character, integrity under pressure, resilience, moral weight. And then, we tested them. I looked at him. No, say it plainly. Sir Malcolm closed his eyes. We removed everything, their assets, their business security, their reputation if necessary. We did it quietly, legally enough to survive scrutiny, ruthlessly enough to be effective. My hand gripped the arm of the chair. And then you watched. Yes. To see what? Who remained when nothing was left? The silence in that room became unbearable. What happened to the others? He opened his eyes. One disappeared overseas. One sued every institution involved and ruined himself further. Two recovered, though not fully. One became dangerous. One broke mentally. He paused. One died by suicide. I stood up. I did not plan to. My body simply rejected the chair. You destroyed people to see if they were strong. Yes. Do you hear yourself? Every day. And me? You slept in your car. He said it softly, as if those 5 words were evidence in a trial. You did not rage, he said. You did not beg. You did not attempt revenge. You did not threaten your son. You endured, not gracefully, not comfortably, but with your center intact. Maybe I was just too tired to collapse. Perhaps. He reached toward the writing desk with visible effort and took a sealed envelope from it. That is for you. I did not move. What is it? A letter of introduction to the other 11 men. My will leaves you controlling interest in my estate, properties, holdings, trusts, influence, and my seat. Your seat. At the table. I stared at the envelope. You want me to join the people who did this to me. I want you to replace me. Why? Because I no longer trust them, and because you understand the cost. I laughed once, small, ugly. You think that makes me qualified? I think it makes you necessary. I looked at the envelope, cream paper, my name written across it in black ink. Arthur Bennett, a name that 24 hours earlier had meant nothing to anyone with power. Before I could touch it, Sir Malcolm spoke again. There is something else you must know. I looked up. His expression had changed. The guilt was no longer hidden. One of the 11 men has a history with you. What history? I did not know it when you were selected. I discovered it 4 months ago. Say his name. Sir Malcolm looked directly at me. Julian Mercer. The name landed harder than the foreclosure notice. Julian Mercer. To most people, Julian Mercer was a financier. Mercer Dominion Capital. Offices in London, Singapore, and Dubai. A man whose photograph appeared beside headlines about growth, markets, and disciplined investment. To me, Julian Mercer was the man who had once shared a rented office with me in Bristol above a bakery that smelled permanently of burnt sugar. We had founded the company together in 1998. 2 desks, 1 second-hand fax machine, 1 receptionist we could barely afford. For 10 years, we built the firm side by side. Julian attended Elliot's baptism. Helen cooked him Sunday lunches. He spent Christmas with us the year his divorce came through. Then, in 2008, he sold his stake. No argument, no betrayal I could see. He said he wanted finance, not construction. Bigger rooms, bigger numbers. I shook his hand. I wished him well. Then I spent 16 years building the company alone. He nominated you, Sir Malcolm said. I could hear the clock on the mantel. Tick, tick. He what? Julian brought your name forward 12 years ago. He sat in a room with 11 powerful men and suggested destroying my life. It was not described that way. Do not polish the blade, Malcolm. He went quiet. Good. I walked to the window. Beyond the glass, the grounds rolled away under a pale morning sky. Julian Mercer, the man who had stood in my garden with a beer in his hand and told Helen I was the most honorable fool he knew. The man who had once said trust was the only real currency. The man who had fed me to wolves and called it a study. Why? I asked. Sir Malcolm's voice was low. He said you were the most decent man he had ever known. I turned back. What? He said, if anyone could survive the test without becoming corrupted, it would be Arthur Bennett. I laughed again. This time it almost hurt. He destroyed me as a compliment. I am not defending him. There is no defense. I sat back down because my legs suddenly felt old. What exactly does this seat give me? Access, authority within the group, their networks, their leverage. The next nomination would be yours alone. By tradition, the group does not overrule the seated member. So I could nominate anyone. Yes. And they would do to that person what they did to me. Yes. The room waited. Sir Malcolm watched me carefully. For the first time, I saw uncertainty in him. Good. I want to meet them, I said. All 11? All 11. That can be arranged. And Julian Mercer will be there. Sir Malcolm nodded slowly. He will. I am not promising anything. I understand. No, I said. You don't. But you will. 3 days later, I walked into a private dining room on the 46th floor of a building in London that had no name on the directory. The city stretched below us in glass, stone, money, and fog. 11 men stood when I entered. They were not cartoon villains. That would have been easier. They were well-dressed, calm, educated men. Men whose voices probably reassured charity boards and parliamentary committees. Men who knew which fork to use and which minister to call. They looked at me with curiosity, assessment, respect, perhaps. At the far end of the table stood Julian Mercer. He had aged well. That annoyed me. Silver hair, tailored suit, the kind of posture wealth gives to men who have not been properly contradicted in years. I walked the length of the table. No one spoke. I stopped in front of him. For a moment I saw the old Julian, the younger man with ink on his cuffs and panic in his eyes when our first invoice went unpaid. The man who held my son in a church hall and said, "He has your serious face, Arthur." Then I saw the other man, the one who had waited 12 years to see if I would break. "Julian," I said. "Arthur." His voice held. Barely. "I owe you an explanation. You owe me more than language." He lowered his eyes. I reached into my coat and removed the cream envelope. I placed it on the table between us. "I am not opening this until everyone here understands something." No one moved. "I will not do this to someone else." One of the men near the window shifted slightly. I looked at him. "Do not interrupt me." He did not. "I will not sit in a room and choose a person with a family, a home, debts, habits, photographs, ordinary mornings, and decide they are strong enough to survive destruction. You dressed cruelty in philosophy. You called it testing. You called it selection. But all you really proved is that powerful men can ruin lives and then admire each other's restraint." The room remained silent. "The man who died," I said. "What was his name?" No one answered. I placed both hands on the table. "What was his name?" A man with white hair near the end of the table spoke. "Samuel Price." "Did he have children?" Silence. "Did he?" "3, the man said. I nodded. "Then remember their names too." Julian closed his eyes. I turned to the table. "This process ends, permanently. That is my condition." One man gave a short, humorless laugh. "Your condition?" "Yes." "You have not signed anything." "No, but Malcolm has. His estate is structured. His files are prepared. And from what he has shown me, every man in this room has left enough fingerprints on enough lives to make silence very expensive." No one laughed after that. I continued. "The money remains, the network remains, the influence remains, but it will no longer be used to break people. It will be used to back them." "Back them?" Julian said quietly. "Yes. Businesses wrongly destroyed by litigation. Families crushed by predatory lenders. People who made one mistake and were buried beneath systems designed to keep them there. You want to know what character looks like? Stop removing the floor from under people. Give them ground and see what they build." No one spoke for a long time. Then Julian pulled out his chair. He sat down slowly. He put his hands flat on the table. "I agree," he said. One by one, the others sat. Not all from remorse, some from calculation, some because they understood I had not come with rage. I had come with terms, and terms in rooms like that matter more than shouting. I took Sir Malcolm's seat. not to continue the selection process. There was no more selection process. I took the seat because 11 powerful men had just agreed to become useful, and somebody had to make sure they did not forget. Somebody who knew what a frozen account felt like. Somebody who knew the sound of a son closing a door. Somebody who had slept in a Volvo outside a house he helped buy and woke up to discover that rock bottom had a door hidden inside it. Sir Malcolm died 11 days later. Harris called me at dawn. I drove back to the estate and sat for a while in the wingback chair by the window. The room still smelled of leather and flowers. I thought about a snowy road 40 years earlier, a car in a ditch. A young man late for work who stopped because someone needed help. We like to think life changes in grand moments. It does not. It changes when nobody is watching. As for Elliot, he called me 6 weeks later. By then, news had traveled in the strange, quiet way money always travels. "Dad," he said, "I've been thinking about what happened." "I'm sure you have. I want to apologize." "You should." A long silence. "I was ashamed," he said. "Naomi was worried. I didn't know what to do." "You knew what to do." He said nothing. "That was the problem." His breathing changed. "I'm sorry. I love you, Elliot. You are my son. That does not disappear because you failed me. Can we fix it?" "Not today." "Dad, you need to sit with what you did for a while, not as punishment, as education." He was quiet. "How long?" "Until you understand that a closed door can echo for the rest of a man's life." I heard him swallow. "Okay," he said. "I'll wait." "Good. I'll call you at Christmas." Then I hung up. My office now is on the 32nd floor of a building near Bishopsgate. No gold letters, no portrait, no need. Below me, London moves the way cities always move. Urgent, indifferent, full of people one bad week away from discovering who will answer the door and who will pretend not to be home. I know who I am now. It took me 62 years, a ruined company, a foreclosed house, one very uncomfortable car seat, a dying man with a folder full of my life, and the betrayal of a friend I once trusted with everything. But I know. Sometimes rock bottom is not where your story ends. Sometimes it is where the truth finally stops asking politely,